Hi there, my name is Vinny Gibson and I own a small coaching business by the name of Sunflower Transitions Consulting. I've been coaching now since 2007 and is it not recording? So I actually said to you a few minutes ago, have you ever gone through something, then wondered what was all that about? What on earth am I supposed to be learning from this? Especially now. Or maybe, why am I learning this again? So, 2 weeks ago, I was in the Dominican Republic, threw myself fully into the experience of working on the project down there. I had some awesome times coaching in the high school, went out into the barrio and in La Vega and spent some days just talking to the families who lived in the barrio. I specifically wanted to talk to women because part of my refocus and my rebranding process as I work with my coaches at this time, I began to realize was to really specifically work with women. And even more specifically, to work with busy women, women who are business owners, small business owners like myself, maybe trying to balance their business with family, with going off and doing other kind of projects, volunteering in their children's schools, trying to juggle all the things that often we as busy women, business women, busy professionals, maybe busy stay-home moms who are juggling business and work and all of the things that go into being a woman in today's modern world. How does one also make time for self-care? So, being a transition specialist, a coach transition specialist, I think I have a good handle on self-care. And for the most part, when I'm in my own environment, I've been able to return to work and to the role of businesswoman, coach, stay home coach, because I have learned some really good strategies to managing my traumatic brain injury recovery. Unfortunately, in the Dominican Republic, on the project that we were down there to carry out, I did not have anywhere to turn off my brain to allow it to rest. It was literally 12 days, 24/7, go, non-stop. When we were not working on projects at night time, it was incredibly difficult to sleep. We had torrential rain on tin roofs that was like a monsoon. We had roosters that would crow at 3 in the morning. There were dogs barking at 5 a.m. There was non-stop noise with motorcycles that could be heard pretty much all over the island, as that's the main mode of transportation down there in the Dominican Republic. So long story short, really in 12 days, I was unable to really find even a half an hour to just let my brain switch off and rest and recover and rejuvenate. I thought as the 12 days went along, you're doing pretty good. You're going to get through this. You will get home and then crash. And so I continued to just push through and really enjoyed every moment of the experience down there until the morning that we were going to return back to Calgary. That morning I woke up at the time that we were supposed to be waking up to go down and have breakfast, and just had this funny feeling in my legs that doesn't seem like I can really put much weight on my legs without falling over. And in fact, that was the case. And so as I asked a roommate, could she help me down to the breakfast area? She did that, and we got down there, looked at the food and thought, no, this does not look very good. Can't eat this. Stomach is very upset and nauseous. And so did not eat breakfast. When it was time to leave the dining hall, I again tried to stand up and realized, oh, things have actually gotten worse. And in fact, now I really cannot actually put any weight on my body without falling over. So as you can imagine, this became a little bit more serious than I had anticipated. Fortunately, as I said, I had some medical people with me on that vacation. And I did, in fact, lose mobility down the left side of my body. My left foot, my left leg really was not communicating with my brain, and I really could not walk or put any weight on, particularly that side of my body, without falling over. And that was to continue for about 7 hours. And so, given that we were leaving in about 2 hours' time, pretty much everything went into let's get her out of here. Figure out how to get her home. And so wheelchair arrangements were made. I was carried to the team bus, carried to the check-in counter, and immediately assigned a wheelchair, which was my seat until I arrived back in Calgary, other than on the aeroplane. Why do I share that story with you in terms of transition? Well, when I arrived home, fortunately, I was able by that time to put some weight back on my left foot. I had had somebody intervene with essential oils, and this had brought some sensation back to my neurons in my brain, but I was still not balanced, but able to get myself home into bed, and finally to get some rest. Why do these things happen? And when these things happen, really, what is our response? What was my response? Well, to be honest, my response immediately was a little bit of panic, because even when my injury was at its worst, I had difficulty maintaining balance. The clocks would make me fall over. The sound of the fridge would make me fall over. The sound of snow, cars going through the snow in the wintertime, I would immediately fall over. But I had never actually lost function in my limbs, as in my leg or in my foot. However, as a brain injury survivor, I had learned some very useful strategies when I was going through the worst of my recovery. And so I'd also experienced some pretty severe emotional responses to that injury, which I'm told is not unusual for anyone going through traumatic injury. I'm sure many of you have experienced your own emotional setback or even breakdown as a result of going through a situation or an injury that really has made you disabled or incapacitated, or just really unable to be fully present and yourself in your body. So let me try and explain to you briefly some strategies that I tried to apply even as we were in this kind of emergency mode situation to ensure that I could get home safely. There are 3 things I know about going through any kind of change or transition. There are more than three things actually, but there are three stages that pretty much occur in any kind of transition. There are three theoretical stages, and there are also often three emotional stages that I would call emotional stages. Theoretically, when one experiences change, sometimes change is so small we really don't even know that change has happened. We go through that change, we don't really experience much of an emotional shift. Maybe after the fact, we might think, oh, now that was strange, why did that happen? But it doesn't really shake our world. Other times, change can really be disturbing. It may totally interrupt one's sense of normalcy. And those are the kind of changes that often are really difficult for people to navigate. So in this particular situation, let me just simply go to speaking about the three emotional changes that I experienced over not just the immediate moment when that was happening, but actually since I've been back over the last 2 weeks. It's about 2 weeks now, exactly today, since I returned from the DR. In the moment of realizing that my body was letting me down again, I went into flight or fight mode. And I would have to say that fight won because I knew I had to get home. And so even though those motions and movements were very slow to process in my brain and to actually make any kind of movement happen, I had learned some strategies as part of my recovery that I began to put into place. And I realized that to get back home, I was going to have to fight through my emotions, to keep calm, to do what I knew I needed to do to make my body work to some degree. It really wasn't until I got home and had had a good night's sleep for the first time in 12 days that I began to look at the rest of that situation. And over the next couple of days, to really examine how was I feeling? Not only how was I feeling right now, but how was I feeling about what had happened? And really, what was I going to do with those feelings? And really, how would I like to feel? Because in that particular moment, 2 days after my return, really, my brain felt scrambled. I felt unfocused, rattled, a little confused, really like my brain had been put through a blender and it was just everything mushed up. The DR experience, the process of returning to this culture from a third world culture. I really was actually having a hard time making my brain process at all. And it did not feel good. I felt actually a little scared. Was this actually going to return? Was my brain going to reset itself? And when was that going to happen? And how long was it going to take? Was it going to be another journey of 6 months or a year? Having worked through transitions before and understanding transition, I realized that I was sort of in a mini breakdown. I call it a mini breakdown because I wasn't collapsed on the floor. I wasn't out of control. I just felt very confused, unable to think clearly. out of control, out of my body. The mind, the brain that I wanted to put to work so I could actually get back to work was not going to cooperate with me. And I realized that was the case. I was not happy about this for the first few days because I had quite a few things that I had to and wanted to return to doing to keep momentum, to get my business back on track, to get my rebranding completed, to get relaunched, to get myself back into the game. This is why I had been working with my coaches, and we had set some pretty big goals for when I returned from my trip. And here I knew I was not going to be able to jump back into working on those things immediately. Silly of me to think that I would, because after any trip really, who comes home and immediately jumps back into their daily routine without really taking some time to process what did I just experience? Not just physically, but really what was that trip all about? The things I saw, the people I spoke to, the experiences I had, the disturbing sights that I saw in the homes of the people that I visited, the excitement that I experienced of working with the youth in the school and sharing their vision and their dreams of goal setting and how to reach those goals. The fun of working with a great team of people. The games that we played after supper every night back at camp. Building new relationships with people I've known for years but never really knew. How thrilling that was. Now all of these things were just blended together or mushed together in my brain that was also trying to reset itself, to refire these neurons that I knew had become impaired again because of overstimulation of noise and activity. No off button. Nowhere for my brain to rest. The very trauma that had brought on my 3-year journey to recover, I had revisited. The noise, the impairment from too much noise, damage to the vestibular system, which I thought was mostly healed. And now realizing that possibly, even though I've come a long way in the last 4.5 years, possibly my brain is still healing. And in fact, it can still let me down. And it was. So, second strategy, or first strategy, admitting and allowing myself to acknowledge that my brain had crashed. And it was telling me it needed some time to rest, reset, and recover. I know from previous journey experiences that for brain injury, it is actually crucial to apply 2 key strategies to ensure successful recovery: pacing and rest. Many brain injury survivors do not heal successfully because they very quickly return to daily activities. In fact, most return to their regular daily schedule within 3 weeks and often return to full-time employment and then also extracurricular activities within that same time period. And as a result, many suffer from ongoing, debilitating complications and symptoms ranging from migraine, balance issues, many lingering, debilitating symptoms. Having gone down that road myself, I really did not want to go back there. And so I very quickly decided to be still, be quiet, take the time, take the week, and just do nothing but rest. Rest and just allow my brain to reset and unscramble. However that looked, whatever I had to do to just stay in that state of calm and rest. And that's really what I did for the first week that I was back from the DR. It was about the end of the first week when I began to actually really have what I call the second stage of transition emotionally, which was the breakthrough. I call it the breakthrough because when a person is in the breakdown stage of emotional recovery, they're really just at their end, and they're just throwing their hands up and really maybe even in denial, grieving. They're maybe angry, frustration, lack of acceptance. But if one allows themselves to actually process and acknowledge those feelings, and really then to ask themselves, you know, if I'm feeling so angry, what am I angry about? And what is it that I actually really would like to feel? And as I began to process those feelings the first week, I realized that I was fatigued, exhausted, and I knew I needed just a rest. And I knew that I needed calm. It had been very noisy. And as much as I'd enjoyed my time, I knew that right now I did not feel calm. I could not focus because my brain was just racing on 10 different tracks. I needed to feel calm. I needed to rest. I needed to pace myself and do only the things I could do in a day that would still allow my brain to have space to rest and recover. I had to change my mindset because I was allowing myself to fall into a very negative mindset. See, look at you. Can't last even 12 days without falling apart. You'll never be any good. You'll never get to where you're trying to go. How are you going to succeed as a business person? How are you going to make this transition into a new direction when you can't sustain 12 days of 24-hour activity? How realistic was that? Recently, I had the great pleasure of attending a conference where I kind of learned some things that I sort of already knew, but like many of us, had to be reminded about the power of the mind and how the things that I tell myself in my mind can actually, in turn out to be not only how I think, but how I behave. If I fill my mind with negative, self-limiting beliefs, why should I expect that my behavior or my actions would be anything but self-limiting and negative? And so as I caught myself the first week and into last week going down that rabbit hole, I literally one morning just stopped myself. Stop. Think about what you are saying in your head about yourself, about who you are. Is it possible that really what you need to do in this moment is to sit and be still? And as you are being still, to reframe how you hear, see, say what is really happening in your body and in your mind and in your physical ability to maintain equilibrium. That simple act of stopping myself, sitting down, taking some time to actually play a 20-minute meditation video, I felt my brain begin to just quiet. And I began to reframe the message, the self-limiting messages that I had been, without even really consciously thinking about it, sending to my brain. The simple act of reframing a self-limiting belief can change the outcome, not only of one's behavior, but actually of the situation. So I began to tell myself, remind myself even, you are in the process of allowing your brain to rest and recover from 12 days of almost 24/7 non-stop activity. And the best thing that you can do for your brain right now is to rest. I also told myself, you are in the process of working on rebranding and relaunching your business to more specifically relate to women who are in fact maybe going through not necessarily a brain injury recovery, but actually maybe they are working on a brain that is overloaded to the point where it really is not functioning properly either, because it is trying to process business and it's trying to process mommy roles and it's trying to process the Parent Teachers Association meeting and it's trying to process the hockey game and the volleyball game, basketball game, the skating, the meal prep, the grocery shopping, and really, how is that brain going to function successfully if it doesn't allow itself time out, to rest, to practice self-care? We are a very fast-paced society. Technology has not really made things easier. In fact, technology has actually just made it more possible for us never to actually not be working. And the expectation, maybe from self or even from one's employer or as a business person, you may be your own worst taskmaster. And maybe you are telling yourself continually in your brain that you cannot stop. You must always be going. You can only succeed if you are flat out 24/7. And I am going to suggest that even the best of us need to give our brains a timeout, to reset, to be quiet, so that new ideas can be generated, so that, in fact, the experiences, the new learnings, the many meetings, appointments can actually be processed by the brain and sorted so that, in fact, in taking even maybe just those 20 minutes a day, maybe like myself, if you are trying to run a business or work on a brain that realistically just needs to have longer periods of time out to be productive and successful. Maybe your downtimes just need to be longer. And who's judging? Is it you, or is it something or someone outside of self? Again, I would suggest that sometimes I am my biggest critic. For myself, over the last 2 weeks, once I allowed my brain to have the quiet time it needed to reset, I began to also hear what I needed to integrate. The third stage of emotional change recovery is integration. When we go through our mini breakdowns or our major breakdowns, there is a time for looking at what is going on emotionally. How am I feeling? Not just allowing that to go back and forth between the emotions and the heart and the brain and rock, but to actually allow the brain to rest so it can think and problem solve. Healthy do's. How do I integrate this new experience? How do I integrate this new setback? What is the learning that I am to take from this? Or that maybe I am just to embrace the journey? And how might this integrate into the next steps of my business, my life, my relationships? A journey without integration of life experience is a journey without a destination. Where are you going? What are the experiences that you have acquired through the painful and the fun times that enhance your life and in turn enhances the lives of others? How does any of this experience help me to be a better coach? How am I going to integrate fully or even partially the experience of both going to the Dominican Republic and also experiencing this latest setback, so that rather than allowing the setback to be the defining moment of how I move forward, rather integrate into how I move forward what I've learned and can bring along with me to make my journey moving forward even more useful. I am still actually learning and processing the lessons, the outcomes that maybe this trip will bring or has brought to me. But I am very thankful. I am grateful for the setback, because it really did allow me to stop and not just miss the moment of all that has gone on the last 2 weeks. So for today, that's what I would like to share with you. I'm not sure if anything has made any sense to anyone out there, but I would love to hear from you. If you would like to have more information about my own journey from brain injury recovery, or any materials that I found useful, I'd be happy to share those with you. And I will leave my contact information with this video so that you can contact me. And also, if you would like to seek me out for any kind of life business coaching, I specifically really am looking forward to hearing from as many women out there as possible. But anyone really who would like to be in touch with me around transition coaching, I would love to hear from you. So for now, goodbye. I hope to speak to you again real soon. Have a great night. Bye-bye.